Hi, this is Don Felder, and welcome to South Detroit SoundHouse.
Hey, welcome all. This is Randy Falsetta once again. Welcome to South Detroit SoundHouse. We are backstage at Freedom Hill Amphitheater in Sterling Heights, Michigan. And guess who we have? Former Eagle, songwriter, amazing guitar player, session musician, and also best-selling author, Don Felder. Welcome, Don.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's great to have you here. Yeah, last time we met was last year in July. Last summer you were on the Soundtrack for Summer tour with Styx and Foreigner.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to see you there. It was a great time. It was just the camaraderie was amazing. And it's great to have you back. I just want to know your thoughts on the tour now that it's wrapped up a year later. How are your thoughts on it?
You know, it was the first tour that everybody in the bands, the crews, the truck drivers, the bus drivers, everybody was like really fun to hang out with. I mean, we all went to dinners every month. We'd have a dinner of like 90-something people. Everybody'd come and party. We went to a bowling alley once and went bowling one night. A bunch of the guys in Foreigner and Styx and myself would go play golf together on our days off. We'd plan our days off. If we had 2 or 3 days off, we'd find some place that was slightly out of the way that had a great golf course. We'd go there and have a great day on the golf course, which is wonderful to find other people that appreciate and enjoy the same things you do, and that we can share them together. So I think that was probably one of the most fun tours I've been a part of in a very long time.
Yeah. What can fans expect from a Don Felder show tonight?
You know, it's really interesting because I do a lot of different stuff in my show. Some of the really early Eagles stuff that I played in the band for 27 years. I do a lot of the songs that I either co-wrote in the band or recorded with the band that are pretty much a lot of the hits that were in that tour, those touring years. I do some stuff for my solo record, Road to Forever, a couple of new songs from that. I do a classic called Heavy Metal that I wrote for the animated film, obviously. Right. It was recently featured on South Park about a year ago and a really funny episode. So if anybody wants to Google it on YouTube, you can find it. It's hysterical that they use that in that video. And then I do a little tip of the hat to like Stevie Ray Vaughan, where I get a chance to just play the blues. Now, a lot of these times when I package with other people, like with the Doobie Brothers or Steve Miller or tonight Huey Lewis, we wind up having a little guest surprise come sit in with us, or I'll sit in with them, or both. Sometimes Steve and I sit together and jam on 2 or 3 songs in his set. During, as you saw during the Soundtrack of Summer tour, Tommy and Todd would come out and sit in with me at Hotel California. It just makes it fun and fresh to have other people to sit there and jam with, and I think everybody that participates in that really has a good time. So there's some surprises for tonight along that lines, but I can't tell you what they are.
We won't ask.
Okay.
How does it feel to be in the center of the spotlight, the main focus of your show, now that you're not just, the guitar player, I guess?
You know, I was the front man in all the bands I was in from high school on. Singing, fronting, playing guitar, kind of like the feature of the bands until I joined the Eagles. And at that point, there were so many established singers that had been recognized on the radio and identified with the voices on the radio that I wound up having a much more of a supporting role in it, writing, playing, arranging guitar parts, background vocals, which I was fine to do. But the good thing about having done that is now that I'm in a position where I can really control what I do with my life. I can decide how much I want to work, how much I need to be at home with my family and kids and grandkids and the people I love in my life. And I've really learned that if I don't balance the 2 parts of my life, I get really disjointed. If I'm on the road way too much, I really feel like I'm just living in hotels and on stages, and I just feel like there's something missing. And if I'm at home too much, I know there's something missing and what it is. So I find that there's a delicate balance between professional and personal life, and I do my best now that I'm in control of my own career to be able to do that and manage the 2 of them. So I'm very happy.
Yeah. Well, with all those hats that you wear, like I mentioned earlier, the producer, the author, what hat resonates best for you these days?
It's the variety of them all, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I'm constantly writing. I have a studio in my house. I was just in the studio a couple of days ago with a drummer. We're laying down some drum tracks so that when I get a chance here, I'll put on headphones on a plane and listen to it and start writing ideas. I've got a bunch of lyrics set up, guitar parts. I just have to have the time. If my manager and booking agent will ever let me have a block of time where I could sit down in my studio and go through those parts and kind of shape them into songs and finish writing lyrics, that sort of stuff. So I'm constantly doing it. The thing that entertains a lot of my time that I like the least in the business is the business part of it. Being involved with tour packaging and who we're going to put together and the routing and how much, because if I left it up to my business manager, my booking agent, and my manager, they would have me on the road 175 shows a year. So I have to really be selective about what I allow them to do to me so that I can maintain myself. But I love writing, I love performing probably as much as anything else in my life, be it on stage, playing for people. That's what really gets me off. It's what started me when I was 10 years old. Playing music is that just thrill and joyfulness I get from doing it, and what keeps propelling me today, you know. So that, writing, producing, recording, touring, having to deal with the business, you know, is not the most fun part of it, but it's a necessary evil of doing it.
Exactly. Do you mind these days talking about the Eagles? You've been, there's 27 years of your life. I mean, is that, how do you feel about talking about the Eagles these days?
You know, I personally feel that together we had a really magical combination of vocals, of writing skills, of musical combinations, and we were able to create some of the really unique period pieces of the 70s and in the early 80s as well. And if you look back at what we were able to do together as a group, you can't help but be flattered when you look back at your own accomplishments and go, whoever thought that would happen, you know? So I look at it with a great deal of pride, and I try to let all the dark side of it just slide to the wayside, and try not to let that be something I carry with me, but I'd like to remember it fondly, and wish we could just mend those relationships, just for friendships, if nothing else. But unfortunately, it's where it is right now today.
Yeah, you know, it was such a big part of your life, that 26 quarter of a century. I mean, you know, it was amazing. And, you know, I've got to talk about just, I'm such a fan of the Eagles and their music, but Hotel California, and I know it's been played over and over again, and we've said it and spoke about it so many times, but the epic quality of that song, and to be the guy who wrote that song, is just mind-blowing. And you know, there's been so many interpretations about the lyrics, and I know musically you were involved. I'm not sure if you were involved lyrically as well.
I sat in a few lyric sessions, but primarily those lyrics for Don Henley.
Yeah, but what is your interpretation? Like, I remember reading a quote, and Don was saying it's the excess of America. What's your interpretation of the lyrics?
You know, I think Don Henley is a real brilliant lyricist. He's able to draw these little postcards, picture postcards, in a few sentences that give you an insight that you create in your mind of what a dark desert highway looks like. A cool wind in your hair. Are you in a convertible, or the windows open, or what? And you create yourself, much like you're reading a book. Instead of seeing a picture that someone is showing you at a movie, you're able to create your own interpretation of those lyrics. And he's a brilliant lyricist that way, and not writing so specifically that it's like black and white, but it leaves it wide open for a lot of interpretation. There's been some really crazy people that said, you know, you guys are devil worshippers, a satanic cult, which is like, really? Yeah. That has nothing to do with the song. Just bizarre kind of interpretations. And
what's yours, if you don't mind me asking? What's your feel for the song? What do you grab out of it?
Well, I look at it this way. None of us were from California. And we all drove in through Route 66, and most of us drove in at night. And on the horizon for about 100 miles away at night, you could see the glow of LA just hovering on the horizon as you're driving in. The closer you get, the more images you start churning in your mind. All the images you've collected of California, of the palm trees and the beaches and the bikinis and surfers and the stars on Hollywood Boulevard, movie stars, and just all of that stuff that we've all been kind of propagandized into thinking about California. And so then when you get there and you actually arrive at California, you start learning about the traffic and the pollution and the smog and all the other stuff that you don't really get to experience. So I think it started out with us talking about us all coming into California. And then you are able to kind of, once you're there, you create your own fantasy. It's much like arriving at Disneyland. You know, when you're there, you can go to Futureland or Tomorrowland, or you can go to the Pirates on the Caribbean, and you can create your own kind of lifestyle in California, because you can go north and be in the mountains, you can be in the desert, you can be at the beach. It has everything for you, you know. And so I think when we finally had that concept or foundation on it, not only did it be completed lyrically by Don as Hotel California, the song, but it laid the foundation and framework for building the rest of that album, which became, once you arrive in California, you're the new kid in town with your first hit. Once you're there for a while, right? Once you're there for a while and you get jaded and you're drugged and chasing women and drinking and touring your success, it's life in the fast lane. Then you start thinking, well, God, all these years I played in these crappy bars and all this stuff, was that just wasted time? So all of these other song ideas and concepts came out of arriving at the Hotel California. And it became the foundation concept-wise for that record, which was, other than Desperado, I think was really only the other concept record that the Eagles ever did.
Wow. What an amazing story. And thanks for that elongated look at it, because we've all wanted to know, me especially. I mean, you know, and talking about, just back to the Eagles, just one more question. Their greatest hits, 71 to 75. I mean, what is it, 29 times platinum? Is that?
I don't know.
We've lost track, right?
I think if you ask the record company, they'd probably say it's 3 times platinum, because that's what they only want to pay you on, right? So who knows?
And how does that resonate in your life as being like, that's, I mean, how do you swallow that at the end of the day?
You know, I think it was the very end of the last millennium, 1999. We got together and had a press conference about playing that New Year's Eve, going at the end of the millennium into the year 2000. If you remember, 2YK was supposed to be some big nightmare that was going to happen. So everybody was kind of paranoid and upset about it. So we had a big press conference of what we were going to do, and at that press conference, the RIAA presented us with that award of the largest selling album of the 20th century.
And was that not the first RIAA that they awarded? Was that not the first one?
It was the first time they had awarded that.
Exactly, yeah.
And I had no idea that we were even close to being in that bracket of sales. Or if you think about all the other people in the 20th century, Elvis Presley and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and all of these people that you think have sold millions and millions and millions of records, and for that Eagles Greatest Hits Volume 1 to have surpassed everyone. I only have one thing on the wall in my house. You know, you walk into most people's house, they have all these platinum records and all these gold records. I have one, and it's that award. And to me, I think that says more than having 25 or 30 or 50 other records, because it really says a lot about what an impact that early record and those early songs had on the world.
Wow. What a statement! What a statement that collection was. But anyway, now we're talking about you.
Thank
Don
you.
Felder. So, Road to Forever. This was 2012 was a compilation of basically your life story, right? It was things that resonated in your past, to the passing of your dad. There was things like that, kind of all compiled into this one album. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I set out, like I said, I have a lot of bits and pieces that I collect. And I'd been collecting bits and pieces of song ideas, whether it was lyrics that I had written on an airplane or things I sing in a cell phone as I'm driving down the freeway, hoping I don't get busted for, using a not a hands-free phone, or play guitar riff and then quickly turn on my phone and play it into the phone so I can go back later and find that and develop it into something. So I had all these bits and pieces, and I decided it was time for me to really make a solo record. And started working on it, I think, about 2010. Okay. And wound up having something like 36 songs. And I wanted to pare it down, and I selected what I thought were the best 16 songs out of all of them that I had finished the demos on. Not finished recording them as records, but just finished all the writing. I said, I think these are the strongest, and there's a wide variety of material in it. There's a lullaby, there's some pop rock stuff, there's some like harder rock stuff, there's the Road to Forever, which starts acoustic and then gets really heavy and goes back to acoustic. And there's a song called Heal Me that kind of transforms itself into this back to primal African singing background on the end of it about trying to heal yourself from all of life's scars and wounds that take place as we go through life. And so I wanted to have a wide variety musically as well as a kind of a coherent statement musically or lyrically and in concept. I didn't want it to be a concept record, but just so everything kind of lyrically flowed together and you could kind of see a bunch of different bits and pieces of what my thought process was. So we went in and recorded and finished 16 songs. The other 20 I still have stored somewhere on a shelf.
For the next album?
I don't know. I've written a lot of stuff since then. So, I've got reels and storage lockers full of stuff that I've never finished. So who knows,
Could there be another Hotel California lingering in that little
As a matter of fact, I found the original cassette, the demo that I made of Hotel California about 2 years ago, and I transferred it to digital because I was afraid the tape was just going to crumble away and then it would be gone. And it sounded remarkably like the original record. There were some different things to it because it was just me jamming on a lot of stuff, but it was pretty interesting.
So how does it feel to be an author of a best-selling
I was one of the absolute worst English students in high school. I failed ninth grade English in Florida and wound up having to repeat ninth grade English in summer school with the same teacher that had failed me in a concrete block classroom in broiling summer heat in Florida, no air conditioning, and all the other kids were going to the beach and water skiing and all this stuff. And I was sitting there with this lady that had failed me, having to at least get a C so I could go on to the 10th grade. So I would have never in my lifetime considered that I would have become an author, much less a New York Times best-selling author. But I don't think it was the writing talents as much as it was the story that I was telling and how I went about telling it. And that I never really started out to write a book, as you probably well know. After I kind of spun out of the Eagles and within that same year went through a separation and divorce from my wife.
Yeah, tragic. 2001, right?
Yeah, everything I knew had just been stripped away from me. My family and my love relationship with my wife and my band and my career, and it was just all taken away.
Wow.
So I started doing a series of daily meditations. Every day when I first got up, I'd meditate for about 30 to 45 minutes about specific areas of my life. And I wanted to draw a thread from how and where I grew up and what had led me down this path to where I wound up being in the Eagles and the changes that had taken place to me during that time that led to where I was today. And every time I came out of these meditations, I would take a legal pad and just start writing down, much like remembering a dream before you forget it, writing down the things that you recall specifically. And I started filling up these legal pads. And my fiance had read them and said, this would make a phenomenal book, and introduced me to a guy named Michael Ovitz. And I had no intention of writing a book. I just said, hey, all I'm doing is trying to figure out for myself what happened to me and how I got here and how I go forward in life without carrying all this baggage along, resolve this stuff, and, go forward in a healthy way. So actually it was a very cathartic process to write my book. And I didn't do it because I wanted to sell a bunch of things. It was for me to purge all of those thoughts and feelings and get a clear understanding of what had happened to me in my life. Because part of the 70s, there was not a clear understanding about very much. It was all drugs and alcohol and a rock and roll lifestyle, and how that had changed from my mother dragging me into church by my ear every Sunday morning to go to Sunday school in the South, and very religious upbringing, to being drugged into alcohol and drugs and women and all that rock and roll. It was just a complete change of ethics and morals and everything I knew. And how did I let that happen to me? And so I really needed to figure it out and get a handle on it and understand it. So that's why it turned into a book.
Well, they say it's cathartic, like you were saying, when you write your things down on paper. It relieves the thoughts in your mind, gets them out, and you can kind of think about other things. It declutters your mind, right? So that's basically why you did it.
Sure, absolutely.
And the passion of it, of course.
And the same thing with music. When you've got something that's bothering you, a lot of the creative process, lyric writing, music writing, it releases that constraint that you're struggling with in music as an artist. So both writing, literary writing, as well as music composition are both great outlets for.
Well, we only have a couple more questions because our time is limited, and we know you have to go out and play, which we're all looking forward to. Seeing you're the seasoned veteran that you are, you've been in the business for so long. We want to ask, today, and being a guitar player, it seems that actually it's kind of a two-part question. One is, we noticed that the guitar, and especially in pop music, is becoming kind of irrelevant. Not irrelevant, it's in the background, more so than it was in the 70s, where it was more prominent, and the lead guitar solos were there. And as a guy myself who was a musician, learning licks and things like that, it was so nice to hear it not only on the radio, but it became a part of you in growing up in that era. And I just wanted to ask you today, being a guitar player, what do you think about the current state of the guitar in pop music?
I record every late night television show. Not because I'm a big fan of late night television, but primarily I watch the monologue and then I skim down to the very end of the show and watch whoever the musical act is, because I want to see kind of the direction of where new artists are going. Not necessarily the established ones that you hear on the radio, but where the new breaking artists are going. And there are very few competent, if not barely competent, guitar players. They've got a lick, or they can play a couple of chords or something that's kind of adequate. But there's nobody now that I've seen that's under 40 years old that's coming on just gangbusters. Now, what's really funny is that I've met some really young kids, like in their tween years, like 11 and 12 and 13 and 14, that are just monster guitar players. Whether they'll have the opportunity to appear on a national stage or not, I don't know. But the talent and the desire in young kids to do that is there. And I tell people, if they had spent as much time playing a real guitar as they did playing this plastic guitar hero in this video game, they would be masters by now.
True.
And they have nothing to show for it except this plastic hand-eye coordination
That's
thing,
right. That's right.
They can't go sit in a fireplace and play with somebody or hang out and do anything, So
right.
It's kind of to me, it's a waste of time, although it's a fun game. It's a waste of time to invest so much time and energy that you don't get anything back with you that you can take with you for the rest of your life.
And how about, do you see any future rock stars out there?
Do I?
Yeah, rock stars. I know the term rock and roll has been thrown around lately, and it's it's alive, it's dead, we don't know where it is. Do you see any rock stars out there?
Yes and no. I mean, I hate to redefine the term rock star, because it really throws me into a conundrum to figure out how the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame can have certain people in it that are not rock musicians at all. So I just wonder how much the term rock musician is mutating. Country music used to be really hardcore country music. Now it's more like old Eagles music on steroids. It's more like rock and roll, country rock. It's actually more rock than it is country, but it's mutating into a new thing. The country era is, and I think rock and roll is as well. I think the term rock is growing in width and depth and breadth. So it's either they have to have new genres or new names they put on this to accommodate the different areas that they're growing in, or I think it's a mistake to define an artist or a music into one particular narrow band and call it rock music, because it's so wide and so diverse. Would you call my last record a rock album? Yes, and there's some rock.
It's crossovers.
There's some harder stuff on it. There's some commercial stuff on it. There's some country stuff. There's acoustic stuff. It's just like all over. So am I a rock artist? Yeah, sometimes. So I don't know.
Okay, I get it.
Does that answer your question?
I think it does. And I just wanted to talk about the Eagles being a country band and you see crossover artists lately, like your old friend Don Henley's make Cass County, I believe it's called, the crossover
Correct.
country album, and we have Steven Tyler, and he's done the same,
Yeah.
and they've crossed over into country, being rock musicians. So how do you feel about the rock and roll star artists going into country these days?
I think there's a lot of motivation in that that's based on demographics. I think the country audience still buys CDs. They go to Walmart, they go to Target, they buy CDs. A lot of the pop and younger artists now that are out are selling singles. People go and download on iTunes. So if you want to sell CDs, you need to be in the country market and appealing to that market. So that's kind of why I think that genre is attracting so many national artists.
Yeah, it's amazing. But isn't it great to be in the music business?
It is. I love it. Yeah.
Well, we don't have any more time. It's been great chatting with you. Last thing, what are we going to expect from you in the future? What's coming up?
Well, I'm working on another record. We shot a DVD which aired on Access TV. We're in the process of doing all the paperwork to get that out. Hopefully that'll be out either before the end of this year or the early next spring before the next tour. So we'll have some new merch out. We're just going forward, playing music, writing songs, making
tour
records,
continues.
and having fun.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. This is Randy Falsetta once again, South Detroit SoundHouse, and my guest Don Felder here, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, here's your slate. 1, 2, 3. Audio.